This evening, Books and Books is very happy to welcome Mr. Jacob Wachob. Is it Jason? Damn, I put Jacob. I'm so sorry.
All right, I've been called worse.
No. Jason Wachob, presenting his new book, Wealth, How I Learned to Build a Life, Not a Resume. He is going to be in conversation this evening with our friend, the author of The 22-Day Revolution, Mr. Marco Borges. Please welcome Jason and Marco.
Thank you. What's up?
Uh-oh.
I purposely didn't want to get into too much conversation out there because I didn't want to give away all of the ideas, questions, and curiosity I had behind Wellth. Before we get into that, I know that Miami has a pretty soft spot in your heart because you write about it a couple of different times, more than twice. I want to be the first one to welcome you to Miami.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. One of my favorite places in the world. So it's good to be here in a different capacity.
There's so much. I mean, like you can see this, right? You actually emailed me and said, would you do this with me? And I thought this would be awesome. Obviously, I love you. And over the years, we've become buddies, and I thought this would be really cool. And then I thought to myself, that means I have like a timeline to read this book. I've got to read this. And if you see my desk at home, it's like literally like, books piled like yay high of stuff that I'm going to read, and I'm eventually going to get around to it, but I'm traveling so much that sometimes it just gets the best of me. And I thought, this is great. I'm forced to read it. So in a short period of time. And then I just couldn't put it down. And I picked it up, and my wife and my kids will tell you, I mean, this is like sprinkled with nuggets of wisdom everywhere. And I want to get right to the point, which is you have 13 really cool, inspirational chapters. But before I get into that, I'd love for you to just walk us through the idea, the concept of, okay, I've been through all of this in my life, and I've come to a point where I feel like I can share, I can contribute something that can help someone along the way, because you have 13 very clearly outlined chapters that are like turns in a roadmap, if you will, to get to the point of optimum wealth, sure. Right? But I think that the way that you created the title was extremely cool in that you had a lot of thought to that. And while you read it and you kind of get it, but there was a lot more to it than just getting it, right? So can you walk us through that?
Yeah, and some of it's chance and sort of funny, and some of it was very thoughtful. So my personal journey, something I talk a lot about in the book, is this pursuit of monetary wealth, W-E-A-L-T-H, early on. When I went to work on Wall Street as a trader right out of school, partly because I didn't grow up with money. All I wanted was money. I saw money as freedom, and then I get to Wall Street, I make some money, had a relationship fall apart at that time, and just saw it was like this really sharp contrast of like, okay, I have all this money and I could pay off all my college debt and buy my mom a car and all these nice things, and my relationship is a mess, and I was just terribly miserable. So like a really like sharp contrast, like very early on, like, whoa, it's not really happy. And throughout my wellness journey, which I'll talk more about, like really became passionate about this idea that true wealth is one of mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, and environmental well-being. And so how the book came about, I don't know if you know this. So I never intended to write a book. I wrote a blog post 2 years ago. I'm 41 on my 39th birthday, 39 life lessons I've learned in 39 years. So I write this blog post, wake up in the morning, I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna write a blog post. That's what you can do if you have a media company. And they'll publish it. They have to. And the post did really well, and a literary agent read the post and wrote into the general inbox of My Buddy Green and said, read the post, I think there's a book here. So of course I did not reply. I'm thinking to myself, there's no book, I'm not naive, I don't have the time for this, I'm right. No chance. No, so I don't reply. So 2 weeks later, she sends a package to the office with another note and the suggestion of reading another book, saying, I think your book could be similar in structure, and take a look at it. And so I was traveling the next day, so I ended up reading the book on the flight. I'm like, oh my God, I think I could write this. And then just wrote and wrote and wrote every time I flew the entire summer of 2014, which is, I still fly a lot. Did not do the Wi-Fi. It's amazing how much you can accomplish. Like, finding time is always a challenge. You just like, think about it, like so much of our time is just dwindled away with like devices and Wi-Fi. Just turning off Wi-Fi and flights. So just like really started to think about these pillars and what is true success, and like landed on these 13 pillars and just wrote and wrote and wrote, and sort of just like came out of me, because a lot of it is a memoir. So
Amazing. And the title Wellth came as a result of your
just like trying to think of, this, once again, passionate about this idea that we're redefining success, and like really like the play on that word, started to see it a little bit, and I said, all right, let's go for the word. Either people won't totally get it, or maybe this is something that's really powerful that people will latch onto and believe in, and it's a word I really love, and I love what it stands for, and I love that we're, I think, shifting as a culture to this new definition of true abundance. So I said, I like it, let's do it.
I love it. It's awesome. So you have 13 chapters: eat, move, work, believe, explore, breathe, feel, love, heal, think, ground, live, laugh.
Yeah.
When someone from the outside looks in, even somebody like me, right?
Yeah.
I've known you for some years now, and you look like the guy that's got it all perfectly put together. You were born.
To my wife after.
Yeah, you were born. Where's Colleen? She in here? Where she's? Oh, there she is. So he always is the guy that he has this aura about him, that everything just flows perfectly, right? And we think that as humans, we think that of people that do well, that are successful. He's got this monster media company. Mind Body Green is absolutely on fire. And when someone looks at you, they think, wow, he went to the best Ivy League school because he chose it. He probably had 7 that he could go to.
Right.
And he didn't just get in by this, last little chance by talking a teacher into giving him a C instead of a D. No one would ever imagine that, right? And you would think that...
C-.
Yeah.
C-.
All right,
so
fine.
We didn't even get the whole
So you would think that you had a full ride scholarship, you had parents that paid your way through school, and that you graduate and you go to a top firm, and then from that firm you make bundles and bundles of money, and you make really great connections, and that's how it happened, right?
No, exactly.
Not so much. So it wasn't such a linear path.
Right.
It was a lot of zigzags along the way, as you sort of right, and you learned a lot of things along the way, and I think that looking back in retrospect, you sit and you say to yourself, okay, what were the things that I can share with others, that I can impart, that can help other people understand what the definition of true wealth really is? And you start with eat, because obviously we all have to eat, right?
Yep.
And I noticed that you're not, and you're in the health space, so if you're not healthy, it's bad for your reputation, right? So you are not maniacal about what you eat, what you don't eat. You just found what works for you, and you're consistent. And I think that the underlying message is just be consistent and be thoughtful and be mindful, right? Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, I think listen, we're all unique. I am 6'7", 41 years old. I do yoga a couple of times a week. I meditate daily. I go to the gym once a week. 20 years ago, I was playing basketball in college, so like completely different workout regimen, completely different. It was just completely different. And so, how could what I eat today be similar to what I ate 20 years ago, or versus maybe a woman? Yeah, or a woman who's like 5'2", 19, runs a marathon a day, like. That's just crazy. And so the one size fits all approach to diet just always drives me nuts. I think we're unique. I think we need to find what works for us. I think the word lifestyle is key. I do think there are some underlying principles which I think are universal. Like, I joke in the book, write the best-selling book. To me, the best diet book of all time would be Eat Mostly Vegetables. No one would buy it. It'd be about a page, and that would be it. And it's this idea, I think as a society, we probably eat a little too much animal products, processed foods, and sure, life happens, but I believe in reversing that, and I think if you just eat more vegetables, I think you're going to be okay for the most part. Sure, of course, if you have a health condition, or if you know personally that you're an all or nothing person, you have to do it, but start there, and once again, it's a lifestyle. If you go all into something and you know that you can't maintain it, you're just going to fail. And you're going to get down on yourself, and you're going to set yourself up for failure. So I really believe in this idea of a lifestyle. I believe in enjoying life. Also like the spiritual aspect of breaking bread. It's a part. You should enjoy food. Have dessert. I always say, I like donuts. I don't have them every day, but every once in a while you want a donut. Enjoy it. But really find what works for you. I think that's like the big thing that people miss. This one-size-fits-all approach is nuts, and start with a diet that I think is rich in vegetables, and for the most part, you're going to be fine.
Awesome. You moved from that into pun intended, and you go from being borderline pro athlete to
now, can we get a quote on that?
So you're playing at a pretty high level, right? Super competitive level, and you go from there to being more of a yogi than you are a basketball player. Yeah. And I think that a lot of times people have difficulty losing or giving up or putting behind them what they used to do, and then continuing moving forward. So sometimes, someone works out rigorously with weights, and then they tear a shoulder or mess up their knee or something happens to their back, and then they just say, okay, that's it. It's not for me. I can't do it anymore. And they no longer go out to try to explore what other options may be available to them, or what may work better for the life that they're living at that particular moment. But you were like water in a glass, right? Yeah. You were like, okay, that's not working for me anymore, so I've got to move on to something else. So walk us through that whole mindset and how you started off there and wound up over here.
Sure. So I played basketball at Columbia, which they're actually really good again. They just won a postseason tournament. It's exciting. It makes me look better.
You're at Columbia? You actually played? You put on a jersey?
There's a jersey there somewhere.
Get out of here.
Photo on Instagram. Apparently Snoop Dogg was at Columbia a couple years ago, and he was wearing my jersey. Not that it's my jersey. A lot of people wore my number after me. It was funny. So I played basketball, and I was a gym guy. Let's go to the gym, let's do weights. I always hated running, so once basketball was over, I was the last time I ran. Do the elliptical, but I was a gym guy, and that's what I did. And then years later, I was running another startup, and I flew 150,000 miles domestic in 1 year. 6'7", coach seat. Do the math, it's not pretty. Old basketball injury combined with stress and flying, 2 extruded discs in my lower back, L4, L5, S1, twisting on my sciatic nerve. So my right leg was like a lightning rod, excruciating pain, could not walk. Went to a doctor, he said, you need back surgery, and here's a cortisone shot. Didn't do anything. Didn't necessarily, I don't oppose surgery, it was just something I kind of wanted to avoid, so sought a second opinion. Second doctor said same thing, you need back surgery, non-negotiable. It was almost like an afterthought. He said, some yoga therapy might help. So I was like, okay, I'll try yoga, let's see what happens. If it doesn't work, I'll get surgery, hopefully it does. So started to do some really light yoga in the morning and evening, like 10 to 15 minutes, like nothing hardcore. And over the course of a few weeks, I started to feel better. So then I'm like starting to dig a little bit. I'm like, oh wow, like sleep, stress, nutrition, all these things. I remember going to this place we were living in San Francisco at the time, this spa. And I was getting a massage, and she was telling me about the chakra system and how like the lower back gets inflamed around money worries. I was like, oh, this is happening to me. This all makes sense. And so kept on feeling better. Then eventually, over the course of a few months, like completely healed. So I've never got back surgery. So I was like, holy cow, everyone's got health wrong. I was a gym guy, that was great, but like this yoga thing, it's amazing. It saved my life. And just couldn't get enough of it, and went vegan, vegetarian, just went through the whole thing, and really just saw that, I think the traditional way of working out was something that wasn't working for me, and saw yoga as this thing that was like this beautiful practice, which was also spiritual and physical and healing, and it was like I was like a kid in a candy store, and just like completely went with it and transformed me, and also led to the idea for Mind Body Green.
And I guess we have to work, don't we, at some point, somewhere?
Yes.
Yeah. And you have done a ton of different things.
Yes.
I mean, you guys are going to be fascinated by the amount of positions this gentleman has held.
I've never worked in a bookstore, though. I kind of would like to.
Can we try to make that happen? So you were like pool attendant, bar back, bus boy, waiter. You weren't even that guy. Yeah,
I was the bad guy at the pool. People wanted to hang out with the cool pool guys. I was in the snack bar.
Yeah, and you didn't get the tips.
No
No one wanted to break the tips off.
Yes.
So you go from, and again, you would imagine that Mind Body Green guy is a monster. He went straight to it, and he like created this beast. And you look and you're like 1,000 jobs. I mean, like all over the place. And it was, of course, a journey, a path that you had to take in order to get to where you are today. But you learned a lot of things along the way. And I think that for me, at the very least, because it's something that I notice a lot, is that whenever I go out with someone that I've just met, I'm more observant of how they treat others than how they treat me. Right? So like I'll watch how they speak to the busboy or the waiter or the guy that pulls up the car at the valet. And you actually learned that from being in that position. Right? I mean, what did you walk away from all these experiences with? Because I'm sure there was some big idea that you were like, I am never going to be that guy, you know?
Yeah, I think there were so many, as Marco said, I had a lot of jobs as a teenager in college in the service industry, and just saw, how hard it was for people who were in that industry to make a living. And I'll never forget, I was a busboy at a country club, and being a busboy is hard enough anyway, really hard job, especially they don't share tips, and it was at a country club. So no one's going anywhere. Like, they're not turning a table, like that. They're just there.
They're there
the whole
for
night.
the day.
And I remember, and I was just so pissed, and like it was just a party for anyone see Caddyshack? That's where it was like Judge Smails. So it's like a Judge Smails party, and it was just going on forever, and I'll never forget, there was a guy, another busboy. I was like 17 or 18 at the time. He was
Johnny?
Like 20. Johnny, yeah. You read the book.
A page or two.
This guy was like 25. It was like midnight. He was living there too. He immigrated from Mexico, and he was like, "Do you mind if you cover for me? I have to go to my next job at a bagel store at like 4 a.m." And like right there, I'll never forget that. Like I remember vividly, like, holy shit! Like here I am, like whatever I'm complaining, I can quit this job in a week, which I ended up doing, but this poor guy can't. And like this idea of like really learning about work ethic, and then B, this like larger concept of like gratitude and how that's played a role in my life, and I think in all of our lives. And you think you have it, or you think you have it bad, and then there's someone here who would just absolutely kill for the position you're in. There was a big lesson in this idea too of work ethic and connect the famous Steve Jobs quote, you can only connect the dots going backwards, you can't connect them going forward. So, as Marco mentioned, I'm on this path, like, for various jobs and careers and so forth, and sometimes you're taking those steps and you're like, this is terrible, I don't know where it's going. And then when it all happens, you can look back and say, oh wow, well this led to this, or this led to that, and so forth. But it's very hard to step away from that while you're in the middle of it. Over time, it gets a little bit easier because you can sort of point to the history. But still, it's hard. I think a lot of people have that challenge, including myself today. I think everyone does.
And it's a perfect segue because you have to leave, right? That's the next chapter.
Yeah.
But actually, before we get into that, what was the shortest job you ever had? How many days or hours or?
That was the busboy job. That only lasted 2 weeks. Okay. Yeah, I was like,
you're gonna have fun reading. You're gonna have fun reading about his adventures. So believe, and this is like one of my favorite chapters. One of my 13 favorite chapters. This is something that I've been one of those guys, right? So like if you're an entrepreneur on any level, you have to believe.
Yeah, and I think it's an idea. Once again, I'm like super passionate about it. It's funny you bring this up because like this message keeps on coming up whenever I'm doing these things. So like once again, so I'm talking about work ethic. So I think to succeed, you have to work. You have to put your head down. I think a lot of type A people, a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of people who are successful are used to setting goals and just going ahead and kicking ass and taking names and that's it. And I think that works to some degree, but I also think there's this other side, particularly in health and wellness, where someone they're going to do their affirmations, they're going to pray, they're going to meditate, and then just sit on the couch and eat a ham sandwich. And it's like you can't. I believe in the middle path. You can't just go full speed ahead, and you can't just sit on the couch and say, I'm going to manifest the career, I'm going to manifest the relationship. Like, you got to do the work. But I think I believe in this middle path where you have to do the work, but at the same time, you have to be able to step back and have this spiritual awareness of, like, what's going on here. Like, I'm trying to break down this door, but it's not opening. Like, okay, is this the right door? Or is this door over here to my left? Oh wait, maybe this is the right one. Maybe I should go in here, and boom, it happens. And I think it's like really hard. It's something I still work on. I think anyone who's used to working hard and used to getting their way, I think the classic type A has a problem with that. But I think it's like really important it's to have that spiritual awareness, and also this belief in something greater than yourself. Like as an entrepreneur, as someone, you believe in accountability. It's like you believe in responsibility. Like I can do this, it's my fault if I don't do it. But at the same time, I think it's a little bit naive to think that one person, even though a little bit of one person can do great things, but you have to be able to step back and say like, well, I'm not responsible for everything. Like, whether it's luck or God or the universe, like there's something else greater at play. So it's like having that belief in something greater than yourself. And that transcends work. It transcends to, in healing and accomplishing goals. If you don't believe, you're just not going to get very far. I've just found that in life, and it's sort of been ingrained in me. And I think it's that simple.
Yeah, and I think there's a certain aspect of it also that you have to almost evaluate yourself to truly understand that you really do believe, because a lot of times people trick themselves into thinking that they believe when they really don't, and that sort of sets up a roadblock rather than an opportunity. Explore.
Yeah.
I love exploring, and you've definitely gone through your fair share of exploration. What was that one moment where you said, I'm no longer going to chase wealth in the traditional setting, right?
Sure.
I'm going to find what makes me happiest and what fulfills me the most, so that I can get up in the morning and go to bed at night and do exactly what I love in between.
Sure. It was a couple moments and then led up to this other moment. Life is always it's like life is always a series of moments. I feel like I think yes, there are like those defining moments. There are also these like little moments that lead up to that defining moment. And for me, I was a trader, and I loved being a trader. Right out of college, it was very competitive. It was like playing a game every day. It was like, okay, basketball's done, but like my competitive nature, it's living on, and it's phenomenal, and the market was great, and I was able to do very well at a very young age. And then 9/11 happened, and that changed a lot of things for a lot of people. It was a few blocks away from that not happened, and I started to like lose interest. I started to leave a little early on Friday, and then that would be Thursday, and then the summers would get worse. The next thing you know, it's like I'm always looking at the clock, and even though I was doing well, I wasn't doing as well. And I was like, wait, something's wrong here. If I'm always like looking to leave, like what am I doing? Is there something else? Like I'm just checking out. Like I can't wait to get out of here. And so I came upon this quote. I think it's like Lawrence Pearsall Jack's, essentially about like when the power of when work and life become one, and that you can't distinguish between the two, and you never want to give it. And I remember reading this quote, and I'm like, I want that. Like you read about people like Martha Stewart or Richard Branson, where they're just so in love with what they do and they work all the time. And I'm like, I want that. I don't know what it is, but I'm tired of just checking in and checking out like a punch card. And then and I just knew I had to change. And then eventually left Wall Street and made a hard decision just to like walk away, because it's tough to walk away when there's some money there. You can easily just use it as a crutch. It's easier to walk away when the door just like slams in your face, or it's like, okay, I gotta go. So it's like very hard. Whatever you're doing, like it's very hard. Like if you're succeeding, it's easy to like stop and quit if you're not. But like if you're succeeding, it's like you gotta start over. And it was a series of events where it was like if I don't get out now when I'm like 27 or 28, I think it was. I'm not married. I don't have kids yet. I don't have a mortgage. Like I'll never do this. So I just had to do it.
And it takes a lot of courage, because your friends are all doing really well.
Yeah.
And they're all working along your side, and they're you're young guys partying your asses off in New York City. Sorry, and you're having a ton of fun making a bundle of money.
Yeah.
That's really difficult. It takes an insane amount of discipline to just stop one day and say, I'm no longer doing this. And I really dig into that because you see a lot of people get up in the morning and go through their lives, as I like to say, with their eyes closed. They never really open their eyes and experience life because they're unhappy.
Yep.
And there's always that, well, when, it's like when I pay off my mortgage, or when I get a raise, or when I get the new car, or when my kids go off to school, or when my kids get married, and there's always that when, and they never really go out and they
Never
chase
a
it,
good
and
time,
it takes. Tomorrow never comes, right? So there's never the perfect moment to do something as radical as leaving that comfort zone and stepping into the unknown. And you just found the courage because you knew that you were unhappy and that you no longer wanted to. Life is extremely finite.
Yeah.
And you knew that you wanted to spend your days doing something that fulfilled you, not just monetarily, but also emotionally.
Yeah, and I just knew I had to get out, and I just wanted to take that first step, and I really, had this underlying faith that I thought everything would work out, but it also took like 10 years. So like there were definitely moments where I was like, what the hell am I doing? You mentioned I went from doing really quite well, and then going back, talk about contrast, like I moved back home with my mother and grandmother when I was 30 years old. And I'm like George Costanza. What happened to me 3 years ago? Like I was this other guy. I could still be that guy. Why am I doing this? So I definitely had those moments, and I think, especially like being an entrepreneur and making those types of tough decisions, it doesn't often happen overnight. I think it takes time and work and perseverance.
Breathe.
Yeah.
It's something that we all have to do, but you
Yes.
put a cool spin on it.
Yeah.
How did you come to realize that you had to just stop and
Sure.
breathe?
Meditation has been huge for me. I don't have that much time in the day anymore, but my day has gone, it's funny, like, so yoga saved my life. I get all into yoga. Next thing you know, I'm going to like every public yoga class in New York City, like 5 days a week, 6 days a week. Then Mind Body Green starts to take off, and then 5 or 6 starts to become 4, then 3, then 1, and then I'm like, what happened to my yoga practice? Like, I'm making all these people better, but what happened to me? And so through that, I said, okay, I need to figure out what works for me, and it's this idea of lifestyle again. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to do yoga on the weekends for 15, 20 minutes, and I'm going to go to the gym once a week, and, I really need to find something to manage stress, because, like, stress, put it this way, everyone has stress. Stress doesn't go away, it follows you everywhere, it just changes. And so it's like, I need to find a practice to really like manage stress. Like we're Mind Body Green, like I'm getting the body, I'm getting the green, but like the mind could be better here. So started to practice meditation, and I do 20 minutes a day, sometimes twice a day, repeat a mantra over and over in the morning, and in the afternoon we have a meditation room, I go in there. At the office, I never miss a day. Sometimes I won't do 2, but I never miss, and it's been game changing. Like it's really helped me clear my mind. I feel like this idea of like right before I'm meditating, if I'm burnt, I feel like I'm watching like a bad TV with bad reception, and I walk out. It's like, oh, I got high def. It's amazing, and this cloud lifts, and I think it's one of the best tools I have in my health and wellness toolkit, where I feel like I may have gone insane on certain days if I didn't have this, where it's just really allowed me to deal with stress. Because once again, like it doesn't go away. If you say to yourself like, well, we just got to do this and that, and sure, like there are things in life that are very stressful, and some things more stressful than others, but it doesn't go away. You just have to find a different way to deal with it and manage it. And so that's been a huge tool for me. And I also, I start the book. If you can breathe, you can meditate. It's that simple.
And so you're running Mind Body Green, and you get up in the middle of the afternoon and you go and he actually meditates at the office.
Yes.
And you're running this company, so you're just like, oh, give me a second, I'll be right back. And you just like walk out and go and do your thing, which is pretty awesome. Everyone sitting in this room is probably thinking, man, I've always wanted to meditate. It's like watching a movie and someone's really in shape and you're like, I'm starting to work out tomorrow. So everyone here is thinking, I'm meditating tomorrow. So do they have to buy the book, or can we share with them the cool little trick on how? Yeah, let's do it. So how do we we want to start tomorrow? We want to start tonight before bed.
All right.
what do we need to do? Like, how do we get into it? Like, what's the easiest? You have a really quick, easy, like, if you know how to breathe, you can meditate, right? So you can keep your eyes open, you can close your eyes, and we could just breathe. Inhale through your nose, exhale through your nose, a couple of nice deep breaths, and that's it. It's as simple as that, because people always say, well, I can't do that, I can't disconnect, I can't find the time, I mean, it's really as simple as 5 minutes a day, and the benefits are mind-blowing, really. I mean, it sounds like it's silly, but yes or no?
It's amazing, and one of the best hacks, the meditation hacks, which I've given to like my 70-year-old uncle, is if you're ever really stressed out, so if you're in the line of like Whole Foods, you're ready to strangle someone, you know, or you're 11 to 10, or like, you know, you're late for a yoga class, and you're like, God damn, need to get to yoga, need to try it. I'm stressed. Inhale for 2, and then exhale for 4. So you just inhale for 2, count to 1, 2, and exhale for 4, and it activates the parasympathetic nervous system. It just like makes you, anyone can do it. It's like the easiest thing, like, and just boom, 1, 2, and out for 4. It could go through your nostrils, your mouth. Anyone can do it. It's just amazing.
And it also releases nitric oxide in the brain when you breathe into the nose,
There
which
you
is a
go.
vasodilator. So it means you could breathe better because your blood circulates easier.
Added bonus.
Bingo. So there's something here, you're right, that I absolutely love in the feel section. And it brought me back to the days of having my first gym here in Miami. I remember that my little sister, at a certain point, I don't know if she's here. Is she here? There's my other little sister. My little sister was in high school, and she started working with us a few months into us having this gym. And then one day she's like, I don't know how you do it. Some people are just so rude. So-and-so walks in every day, and I say hi to her, and she just grunts and walks past me, and then goes and takes your class. Like, you don't know what she's going through. You really don't know what. And I wasn't trying to like make it better or make it right. I was just saying you just don't know what someone is going through until you're in their position, right? And there's the A, B, C, D, E here, which is pretty damn awesome. Has anyone ever heard of the A, B, C, D, E?
For Sullivan?
It's just awesome. So adversity, right? A is for adversity. Someone cuts you off in traffic, right? And then B, you think, what a jerk. And then C is the consequence. You scream, you probably flick off one of your fingers, pick the one you like best. But then we add to it the D and the E, disputation, right? This is where you provide some counter evidence. Maybe the driver's in a rush. Maybe the driver has a really bad stomachache. They had to cut you off because you got to go to the bathroom.
You're late to yoga.
Exactly. And then E is energization, which is when you take the moment to celebrate that you didn't flick that person off and that you maintained your cool because you put yourself in another position rather than look at the obstacle. You found an opportunity to be a better version of you rather than to just snap.
Yep.
And I love the way that you look at how you're supposed to feel in comparison to how you're feeling, right? So like different little tricks on how you can make yourself feel better just by putting yourself in a different mindset.
Yeah, it's like when people say, well, I'm a pessimist or I'm an optimist. Well, like, no, you don't have to be a pessimist. You know, this is called learned optimism. Like, you can actually train yourself by this is one of the methods to be more of an optimist. So it's not really an excuse. And look, life happens. We all have days where it doesn't matter, and that's okay. We're human. But it's something we can all work toward.
The next chapter is love. Colleen, could you stand up, please? This is a short one. I'll just have you stand up. Can you just raise your hand? Okay, we'll pass love. That's a pretty interesting chapter. I think summarize it for me. Just what's that takeaway in like the group hug? What's the group hug?
Well, I think it's a couple things. One is this idea that the zigzagging path. You can't connect the dots forward, only backward, and especially with relationships. It's very hard to do. Like, you're in the middle of something, it's not working, or it's like you can't see straight. Looking backward, you can. And so this leads me to the larger point of the chapter, is this idea that there are three types of soulmates, I believe. And so the first type of soulmate is the one many of us have had, the one that, you know, you're great relationship, but you drive each other nuts. And there's always this push and pull, and it doesn't work out. You know, there's passion there, there's probably love there, but it's the one that's it drives you nuts. But once you step away from that relationship, you see how this relationship really helped you grow, get you from A and B. Very hard to do while you're in the middle of this thing, but looking back, you can see that, well, I grew here, and this is what I learned, once again, once you have distance. So I believe that's the first type of and I'll say there's two types. I said the three types, the first two are romantic, and the last one is non-romantic. So I think that's the first type of romantic soulmate. The second type, you know, I think is the one who's the forever kind, the one, as I say in the book, you know, I think with the first kind, 1 and 1 maybe equals 1.5, maybe 2 sometimes.
Right. Someone's not yet complete.
Yes, and the second one I think does, you know, make 1 and 1 equal 3. You know, I do believe it's the forever kind. I think it's the one that, you know, instead of bringing out your insecurities, which the first one probably did, those insecurities disappear with the second one. I think that's the most powerful kind. I think it's, you know, the one that we watch the movies about. So I believe that's the second kind. And the third kind, which I think, you know, are abundant in our lives, is this idea of the non-romantic soulmate. It's that, you know, friend we've had forever who we could, you know, lose touch with, and next thing you know, run into them, or the phone rings and you pick up right where you left off. Or these people who come into our lives and we have like a very deep bond at a very specific time. They really help us grow, and maybe they leave, maybe they come back, but they're abundant. And it's this idea I think is important. You know, I think we operate from a place of deficiency in so many ways with regard to health and wellness. I think we need to reframe how we think about soulmates. I think soulmates are abundant, and to recognize that they're everywhere and that there are multiple types.
I love the idea. I guess it's maybe because I've always practiced it. Is that a lot of times people go in search of relationships, hoping that their last 25 or 20% or 15% can be fulfilled by someone else.
Yeah.
And I've always believed that, and you sort of right, that you have to be complete yourself before you can actually join a relationship, and that 1 + 1 can equal 3. That to me is extremely powerful, because a lot of times people are too young sometimes when they get into relationships, and they don't know why this keeps happening to them as it did to you, right? And you're just not sure why it keeps happening, and you were not a 1 yet, and that's why you weren't ready to meet Colleen.
If you're not happy with yourself, you'll never be happy in a relationship.
Our next chapter is heal.
Yeah.
And there's many different ways to heal. We can heal our minds, we can heal our bodies, our spirits, most of the time we need to work on all of them. My favorite word is kaizen. It's it's continuous self-improvement, right?
Yeah.
So you're continuing to work on the brain and your spiritual being and in your body, and you have to find a balance to basically keep it going, right? And you healed from injuries that sidelined you, whether it was your back. You healed emotionally from relationships that you were in that didn't work, and you were like, why me, God? Why again, right? Again, the second time. Why would you do this to me? And you have to find that space where you just sit back and meditate maybe. And
and once again, I think it's this idea of the middle path, where to heal, you have to do the work. You have to do the research, you have to do the therapy, you have to change your diet, you have to believe. But also this ability to take a step back and believe that you're going to be okay is a big thing. So when I healed from my lower back pain, I wasn't really spending a lot of time on Google. I just sort of went with it. I didn't worry in the back of my mind that I would be, I could never walk. 'Cause I couldn't walk. I literally could not walk. It was terrible. So I always thought I'd be okay. And then in retrospect, seeing the science of the power of the mind and how healing works, that was like a huge healing tool. This ability to let go and say, no matter what happens, I'm going to be okay. it's really powerful. And there's science that supports that. Like there's a lot of great science coming about how the mind and body are one. You know, they're not separate, they're connected. The placebo effect, the nocebo effect, sort of exciting in the world of healing because, you know, Eastern and Western are sort of merging. So all these things that we talk about, like, you know, nutrition and stress and all these things, or whether they're good or bad for us, you know, that we talk about, science is really supporting that, and especially with regards to healing, which to me is one of the most exciting things, where all of a sudden, you know, we could say, you know, eat kale and do yoga and meditate, and then here's study, 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 you'll live an extra 25 years.
Not that easy.
Well, you know.
None of this is possible without a lot of contribution from external forces. So we have to be able to give thanks for the things that come into our lives, whether they be in material form or in support or in people. Speak a little bit about you know, things that.
Sure. I am a huge believer in having some form of gratitude practice. So for me, it was instilled in me from my mother. She like programmed me to have this practice, and for me that looks like, you know, whenever I wake up, doesn't matter where I am, like I'm up. Before I get out of bed, I'm literally repeating the words, thank you, you know, thank you for this, thank you for my health, thank you for my wife, thank you, like just over and over, and then I get out of bed. And it changes everything for me, and I am just a huge believer in having some sort of spiritual practice to give thanks. I think, once again, going back to the problems a lot of us type A's have, you know, if you're ambitious, it's I want that, and once I get that, I want that, you know, I get the car, and then I want the house or the wife or whatever it may be, and it's just never ending. And it can leave you pretty empty, it can leave you unfulfilled, and it's a balance, because I don't think there's wrong with having goals and achieving things. I'm a big believer in that, but at the same time, you're setting yourself up for failure if you can never be present and grateful for what you have at the current moment. And you never want to have to lose something to be grateful for it when it's gone. And so I just am a huge believer. It's a balance, and I get caught up in it too. You know, we're running a company, we're growing. It's like we gotta get to here and we get to that, and then you never want to turn around in life and say, well, fuck, let's just enjoy what we have right now is special. You don't want to have to lose it to go back to recognize that.
And that's a perfect transition into grounding, right? We live such connected lives, whether it's email or your social media accounts or your company, whatever it might be. Sometimes we lose the ability to ground ourselves, and I mean it in like the most basic, most simple form. Like just take your shoes off and go for a walk, whether it's on the sand or on grass or just stand in your garden, or if you're in New York City and like on top of a tree somewhere.
I come down here.
Exactly, right? So it's extremely important.
Yeah.
And through Mind Body Green, I'm sure that you've learned a lot of the benefits of grounding, but not just in writing about it, but in actually practicing it, right? Because it gets kind of crazy. I mean, you guys they've moved to a really beautiful new corporate headquarters in Brooklyn, which is absolutely phenomenal. So you have a little more green there, but you're still... Yeah, well, and you like take your shoes off and rub your feet against the plants to like get grounded.
People think that's a little bit weird.
Yeah, right. Like, excuse me, I'm going to take my conference call here. So how do you find the time to do that today?
Sure.
Like doing what you're doing today is easy, but
yeah. So what's so funny about that is like I am such a city dweller. Like I love New York. I went to college there. I've lived there pretty much ever since. Like I love the city. Like I don't enjoy hiking. I don't do that. Every once in a while, maybe a little bit, but no. Like I'm an urban walker. Like take me to a city that take me to a new city or New York when it's nice out to walk around. San Francisco, yeah. I'm in heaven. And so it's funny, over the last couple of years, especially in the winter in New York, no surprise, I've really felt this need to like connect with nature, and it's been weird because I'm such a city guy, and this experience of grounding where like I almost like feel I need this, where I will get to the point. That's one of the reasons why we come down here so much. We love it. You know, just taking my shoes off and like feeling my feet in the sand and like really it's almost like a meditation where I'm like feeling my feet sink in and just really feeling like every step and connecting with the ground. And once again, I'm like, what happened to me? Like, I would have never thought in a million years, like I would really like yearn for this and feel it. And it's just this amazing, connection to the earth. And once again, there's like scientific benefits of this practice, which, people say, oh, new age, crazy, barefoot, like it works. And it's just been amazing. And it's to me that this once again, I never would have thought in a million years, like I am Mr. Let's walk in cities all the time, like would be like, we need to go I need to put my feet on the grass. Never.
Right, and for those of you that may be wondering, is that like just walking outside? I do plenty of walking. It's actually not just walking outside. It's like actually connecting to the earth, like taking your shoes off, taking your socks off, and actually connecting, grounding yourself with the earth. There's so many benefits to it. I mean, we could sit here for another 30 minutes talking about the benefits of grounding, but it's something that if you haven't done it in a while, you should absolutely take your shoes off. Maybe you want to do it on the way out, books and books. The next two chapters are live and laugh, and I don't think one can exist without the other, so we'll kind of just bunch both of those together. Sure. I believe in laughter being the medicine to many, many things, and I live my life. My boys and my wife will tell you I'm constantly laughing. I'm like the eternal joker, right? I think that it just adds so much more to life, because when you look at the way that you've crafted live, you realize that life is extremely finite. Mm-hmm. But in that realization, you also come to appreciate that you're here, mm-hmm. right? And that there's something to live for every single day, and that every day is a new opportunity to live the life that you really want to live, and to live abundantly, mm-hmm. right? And you sort of captured that really well, mm-hmm. In loss, mm-hmm. and in life. Mm-hmm. Can you elaborate a little bit?
The live chapter is largely about death. And so I lost my father unexpectedly from a heart attack when I was 19, devastating. And death is interesting. 19, you're a kid, but you're not an adult. You're finding your way. And it's at those moments, like as a kid, that's like one of the worst things that could happen to you. So it happened, and so here I am, and I get over it, although I think I dealt with it in different ways through college, but eventually got over it. And in a lot of ways, it's a defining moment. There's this interesting, in Malcolm Gladwell's great book, David and Goliath, he talks about, losing a parent as a child. It's like either it just completely destroys you, or you learn adversity at an insane level at an early age, and you really rise from the occasion. You maybe go on and do great things. There's this no middle ground, and so I survived this thing, and in a lot of ways had a spiritual awakening because of this, and because of that, I had this once again, like adversity sort of in my back pocket. Like it's one of those things you start to collect these things in life, and then when something happens, you go back and that wasn't so bad. Like I can get through that. It was also interesting looking back as I started to get older. Like I talk about stress a lot. Like it was very clear to that my father died because of stress. Like it was quite simple, which I realized later. And it's this idea life is precious. So when he died too, he was he did have a heart condition, but no one thought it was serious. He was here one moment and gone. And talk about in the book, before he had died, we got into a big fight, and then afterward, patched it up, and we were fine, and then he died. So one of the first things I thought was holy shit, how awful would I have felt if we have this blowout fight and then he's gone. You feel tired. I'd probably still be going to a therapist. It's just terrible. So really this idea of life is precious, your loved ones, your family, no matter what's going on, always, I'm almost, every time I say goodbye to my wife or my mother or family, I always love you, no matter what, I just, that's it. But this idea that life is precious. And on the flip side, and I also go on too, talking about other deaths and this idea of grieving and what I learned through other losses in my life. There's no playbook for grieving. It's always different. Everyone grieves in their own way. I talk about losing other people in my life where, like, with my father, I got over it, was totally fine at his funeral, then experienced another death where I was a mess, and I was like, what's going on here? Like, this doesn't make sense. I'm not supposed to be feeling this way. But it's this idea that, that death is different, it's always evolving, and grieving is something, you can't go around, you just have to go through it. And everyone goes through it differently, and every death is different. And there's no wrong or right way to grieve. And getting to the laughter part, also, we're talking about death, very serious topic, but life is precious, life is fun. And I think what also drives me nuts in this world where people are so serious and it's about perfection, and life is fun, and we shouldn't be, wound too tight, and enjoy it. Because it could be gone. You're here today, it could be gone tomorrow, and just, enjoy it. And life is not unicorns and rainbows like we portray on Instagram. There's potholes and detours, and have fun. What are we here for? So,
thank you. Thanks for writing. And thanks for coming to Books and Books in Miami. I want to give you guys a couple of minutes. If you have any questions, you could raise your hand, and I'll bring the mic to you, and then you guys can ask away. It could be about Mind, Body, Green. It could be about Wellth. Questions? Any questions? Yeah, start here.
Hi, I wanted to know how you went from being a trader to Mind, Body, Green.
He wasn't that kind of trader.
it took a while.
Here, I'll start collecting money.
There you go.
It's 18.
Do you have square on you?
Yeah.
It took a while. It took almost 10 years. So I left for a healthcare startup, and then left a healthcare startup and started a cheesecake company, which led me to an organic chocolate chip cookie company, and that led to Mind, Body, Green. So it's not this, yeah, they're really, really good cookies. Used to be in every Whole Foods in the country. So once again, it's not, when you're changing careers, you're starting something, I think a lot of people think, well, I'll just leave that, there's my dream job, or I'm going to create this, and it'll happen. It takes sometimes a number of steps, and it's this idea of, like, I don't know where I'm going, but I just got to take this step, and now looking back, I can look at each of those experiences and say exactly, like, what I learned from each one and how it made me, who I am today as a CEO and entrepreneur, so.
We skipped something. Oh, sorry. Sure. I'm a storyteller, so I always want to just jump in and say something. We missed the part where we listened to our guts.
Oh, right? Yeah. Oh,
and you got there because you kept listening to your gut.
Yep.
And in listening to your gut, he wrote that.
Yeah. That's good.
Well, speaking of listening to my gut, I'm from New York, and I felt at a certain point, I woke up one day and I thought, I just can't do it anymore between the stress and the commuting and everybody's tense and angry and motivated and overly ambitious.
Moved to Brooklyn.
Well, I grew up in Brooklyn, but I came down here and just sort of overhauled life. And
you don't have to explain it to us. We live here.
I found a balance, and you speak to all the right points of how we should all live. Have you ever felt the calling to be in a place that is less New York and more MBG?
I love New York. I love Brooklyn. I don't love Manhattan as much as I used to. I love Brooklyn. I think Brooklyn is a lot more, it's a little less stress. It's a little less New York, but New York's so close. Yeah. If we want it. I love it. I find myself, like everyone here, like hitting the winters more and more. And so I find that I travel a lot. But I love New York. I love the energy. Yeah.
Colleen is actually looking for an outpost in Miami for the winters.
Hi. I really think the title is very well put together. I mean, the fact that you can take wealth, the money part into wellness and combine it, it's great. But how did you come up with Mind, Body, Green and the articles? How do you put it together? There's so much information on the internet.
He doesn't really. Let me give it to
Lots of people. So it started with that. So it started with me doing every post every day. So I started doing one a day. My co-founders, one of them coded the web, they kept their day jobs, I went all in. One of them would edit me, the other one would code. Colleen had another job, Colleen would like help write stuff on the weekend, so it started that way. And that took a while, and then we start to write more. And then I'm on my own wellness journey in New York, and I was smart enough to know I didn't know everything. So I'd meet all these like doctors and nutritionists and yogis, and I'd ask them questions and interview them. And next thing you know, one of them said like, do you accept guest posts? And I said, sure, that sounds like a good idea. So then they started writing, and then that was 1, and then 2, and then 5, and today it's 4,000. But it took a long time, and it also came from like this, once again, from an authentic, passionate place where I wasn't like, how do we, create community? Like it just happened, which has been really special and one of the most fulfilling things of what I do, to know all these amazing people. So.
Well, I don't have a question. I just want to thank you. About a year ago, in Facebook, I stumbled upon your Mind Body Green, and I get teary-eyed because Mind Body Green has changed me within the last year incredibly, in so many ways. So many articles that you've allowed so many coaches, psychologists, psychiatrists, in so many ways. It has opened my life in the last year in such a powerful way that I've actually been starting to write, and I've found my passion in some other ways. And I continue my work, but I actually, when I stumbled on the email that said, oh, you're coming to Miami, Books and Books, 5 minutes away from my home, I'm like, oh my God, I'm the happiest girl in this world. So your wife, thank you. But definitely, I'm very grateful. I brought my friend, I'm like, oh my God, he's coming to Miami. I need to meet him. And actually, about 6 months ago, I visualized and I said, I want to meet the person behind Mind Body Green. And part of some of the articles, visualizing, being positive, putting out there that in vision. So thank you, because you've brought so much information in my life that has opened so much.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
You're so sweet.
Okay, I'm going to ask a taboo question, but
Sure.
you were open about therapy. What role did therapy play in your evolution?
It's funny, like, therapy is taboo. I go to this, I don't know how you would describe her. She's like part Reiki, part healer, part therapist. Like, that's someone I go to today. Like, I go to her every couple of weeks. I talk to her, like, this is what's going on at work. Like, this is what's, going on, at home. This is what's going on in my life. I think, it's really important to be able to have people to talk to. I just think and I actually think it's becoming less and less taboo. Whether it's like relationships or depression or whatever is going on in your life, it's just so important to be able to talk with someone. And I think also, like, in the age of the internet, like, there's so much like information overload with talking to friends all the time and online. It's not necessarily a good thing. So, like, I love therapy. I think everyone should do some sort of therapy, whether like it's with your relationship, like relationship therapy too, or like, your relationship's like the most important thing in your life. So, like, why wouldn't you ever go to therapy at some point? Like, yes, I talk about soulmates in the book, but like, relationships are work. They take work. No matter how great they are. So therapy is like something I strongly believe in every form, whether it's for your work or career, relationships, whatever you're going through. Like, I just think talking to an expert is just phenomenal. So you might as well do it if you can.
Did the therapy help you get over Colleen not putting the dishes in the dishwasher? I read it. I didn't read 1 or 2 pages,
No.
okay? No, so I honestly believe that everyone should leave here with a copy of this book, because it's so refreshing that you are so honest and so open about everything, that there are certain moments in the book that I was like, oh shit, he went
My
there,
mother's
like
like,
he's
why
sharing
do you put
that.
that? You were such a good child.
Yeah.
What's wrong with you?
Drunk? What are you talking about? It's really quite refreshing. Someone else had a hand up here. Yeah.
I run a career advisory firm, and a lot of what you spoke about in terms of being strategic yet open in your search, it spoke to me in the sense, especially about looking 3 steps ahead. So I was curious, what's 3 steps ahead for Mind Body Green?
That's a good question. For us, I think it's more, now I really know where we're going. Now it's just more of it. But I think once again, it speaks to this idea of like, okay, setting a goal, here's a strategy, now it's time to work hard and achieve it, middle path again. But also like having that spiritual, like that awareness, which I think is a spiritual thing of like being able to step back and be like, this isn't working. Should we be doing this? Like, am I not paying attention to something over here? And I think that is so hard to do for people who are driven. And I think it's so important. And I think to really succeed and really be happy in life, you need both. And it's an ongoing, something I still work at.
The thing about organic growth.
Yeah, like we have goals and we have metrics and I'm pushing ahead, but I'm also always trying to be able to step back and say like, well, this is working or this isn't working or like this or, it's hard and you have to look at it daily.
Hi, my name is Sean Dreiling. I first wanted to thank you because I don't think you know or realize how much you've changed my life. As an entrepreneur, I run an apple cider vinegar personal care brand, which was inspired by the article titled How I Cured My Acne with Apple Cider Vinegar, posted on Mind Body Green in 2014. So I'm just extremely grateful for how you've changed and improved my life. But from entrepreneur to entrepreneur, my question for you is, what would you have done differently in your first couple startups or when you first started Mind Body Green without using the reasoning of everything happens for a reason?
Sure. This is going to be tough. You're not going to like my answer. I probably wouldn't have done anything differently. The one caveat, and I continue to learn. One thing I've learned a lot about is hiring. So like I wouldn't have hired as fast as we did. When you're growing, you're hiring, and you get to a point where like we just need someone, and I think hiring is one of the most difficult things when you're growing rapidly because you need people, and you don't have HR and you don't have a system, and you sort of go with your gut sometimes, and you go with like the best available player on paper, so to speak. So we made mistakes, like I think a lot of people make on hiring. Now we have data because we're 33 employees now, and it's like, okay, we know what success looks like for people here. Like these are the people that didn't work out, and these are the qualities they have. These are the people that are phenomenal. These are the qualities that we have. So now we have like a system of we have some data to really look at, and now we're like so phenomenal about hiring. But that's something, once again, I don't know if I didn't have all the information. So once again, I don't know if I would have done. I think all the mistakes I made in other businesses were, the cliche is definitely true. You learn more from your failures than your successes. And as Colleen will tell me, I think Colleen would tell you, being an entrepreneur and you have to identify your mistakes, own them, learn from them, and move on. If you can't, you're toast. Right? You would say you're in the same boat. Like you gotta own it, like you gotta acknowledge it, like you can't ignore it. You gotta say like, okay, this happened, I screwed up, or this happened, what's the lesson here? Or maybe I don't know, but we're not gonna let that happen again, and then I need to move on. Because if you can't move on, there are so many little mistakes that happen, doesn't matter how successful you are. If they're still in your rearview mirror, like you're toast. So you have to be able to put it away.
Was Mind Body Green a hobby, or I know you were a trader, to do an amazing blog, you kind of need money and wealth.
Sure.
Was Mind Body Green a hobby that you had, and you had another income? Because it's hard to be like paycheck to paycheck, and then you're like...
Well, my wife would call it a hobby because
Okay.
I was making no money doing it. So it's like, is this a hobby or is this... So originally I was running the organic chocolate chip cookie company and had the idea and didn't know what to do. So it was like on the side for 2 years. And then 2009 went all in. And it didn't really cost, I think we spent less than $5,000 or $6,000 at the time.
Was that because you were living with your parents?
No, this is when I got married, even better. So my wife's supporting me now. Fantastic. Especially when you first get married, a lot of fun. And I would say to Colleen, oh, I can figure this out. It'll take like 6 months. That's the other lesson of being an entrepreneur. It always takes longer than you think. 6 months turned into 3 years. Very understanding, very supportive.
It's a good one.
So everyone should thank Colleen. And so we didn't have much money to, we all put in a couple $1,000s and just went with it. I literally did everything. So in terms of, was it a hobby? Like, it was not producing any revenue, yes. So one could say it was a hobby, but I went full time for 3 years without taking a dime. So.
So you should probably get married if you're not married.
Well, I'll say this. I'm a big believer. I would say for most people, I'm a big believer if you have an idea for a business, do as much as you can while keeping another job on the side and weekends, and then when you're ready to go all in, then go. It takes the pressure off. I'm a big believer in doing things right, and things take time, especially if it's like a consumer-facing business. Like, in retrospect, the fact that My Mighty Green took so long, we've been around for so long, like, we have a really strong brand now. Like, you can't do that overnight. That takes time. There's a great quote, it takes years to build trust, seconds to lose, and a lifetime to regain. Like, it takes years, so things don't, if it's on the side, you can take your time, you can do things right, you also become, more fiscally responsible with money, and I'm a big believer in that. Then when it's time to go, you go.
It's always better to do it right than right now. Next. I think there's somebody back there. That's it? Once again, thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank
Appreciate
you
you
for
coming.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming out to support, and I will turn it over to you.
Okay, folks, so if there are no more questions, then we have Wellth for sale at the counter in the front room over there. Jason's going to be signing at the table to the left of the stools. I want to thank our great guest interviewer this evening, Marco Borges, and please, yes.
Thank you, Marco. New career.
And please give another hand to Jason Wachob. Thank you very much. Good night, folks. Thank you.